All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Greetings and welcome to Conflict Radio. Today is March 14th, 2022. I guess we're coming up on St. Patty's Day, but a lot of people were out this past weekend. At least I found. It seemed like everybody was celebrating on Saturday, but it's actually Thursday. So maybe we can celebrate again on this Saturday coming up. All right, so let me give a quick shout out here to everybody that I see in the group. We've got Casual Conversation with DNA is here, Hank Stalk is here, Hugh Goddard, Not Quite Human, Chili Bean, AJK, Mary K, the Happy Plague Doctor is here. How you doing, Happy? High Plains Drifter, Ian, myself, Hugh Goddard, and Will Carr, Mr. Blue Sky, Vash Wolfwood is in the house. Let me scroll down and see if I'm missing anybody. Hank Stalk, how you doing? I guess that's everybody we got in here so far that wants to be mentioned. AJK says, "How you doing, Michael? How are you, AJK, man? Hope you guys are having a great Monday afternoon." It's David Gosling, a little name change. All right, David, how you doing, Mr. Blue Sky? All right, awesome. So today on the show, we're going to be talking with Keenan Booker. And Keenan is also known as the God 720. He was born in Chicago, raised all around the country. He has a large attraction to every subject underneath and above the sun. He's independently researched anthropology, biology, astrology, law, psychology, sociology, world history, and theology for over the span of 10 years. Keenan, welcome to Conflict Radio, man. How are you today?
Fine. How about yourself?
You know, I'm pretty good, man. And let me give a shout out to everybody. I do ask you to help me with the audio. If the audio sounds funky or something, please let me know. Not Quite Human says the audio is a bit funny. I guess I'm gonna crank me up a little bit, and hopefully everything sounds okay. Let me know how it sounds, everybody. Keenan, I wanted to talk to you today. I'm noticing, man, it does sound a little bit funky. Does it sound okay, guys? I'm waiting for the comments here. How's the sound? I'm gonna wait and see if I can get a. Miguel Sotelo says, "Hey everyone, finally get to catch a live show. Hi, Go Kart Bob is here. Hello, Happy AJK. Looks like you sound good. You good? Everybody's saying good. Good to me. All right. I'm getting a little bit of an echo from your side, Keenan. Maybe.
Hello?
It's coming low and high. Yeah, I'm getting an echo from you, man.
Are you getting echo now?
Let me talk for a minute, I suppose. All right. So Not Quite Human says it's in wave. So maybe we can figure it out. Maybe Vash will come in here. All right. Let's get on our subject today. You've written a couple fascinating books that I find very interesting. And I wanted to talk about, you and I were chatting the other day. Sound is in and out. Yes, the guest, I think. All right. Well, I mean, I guess it is what it is. I guess YouTube hates this channel. That's true. we push the line a little bit, and we're going to be pushing the line again today. A factory planet for the elite. Let's talk about it. You think, and I mean, I guess a lot of people think that the elite in this world are trying to establish a factory prison planet for humanity. Is that correct?
Yeah. There are a lot of things that make arrows point that direction. Yes.
So what's going on? What have you discovered?
Well, I mean, when we look at the past 20 years, there's I'd like to start with the Iraq War.
All right.
The Iraq War really launched the availability for nations worldwide to develop militarized robots with the objective of killing humans. Okay. So this is where the uprisal of drones, this is where the uprisal of robots such as the Atlas or the Talon, which is at every local police department for major cities across America. Okay. There's also water robots. There's also smart missiles and things of that nature that can basically operate on their own. There's a robot called the Eater, which is spelled EATR, which actually can fuel itself off of decomposed material. That decomposed material has been classified as waste from human bodies or decomposed wood. Okay. And it doesn't need to be manned or serviced for the standpoint about 2 years. It can take care of itself. So there's a lot of robots that are in this area of human depletion, whether that be, it doesn't matter what country are developing them. That's the main goal of, and their purpose of construction, so that's just one layer. If we were to talk about the economic side of things, that has also been imposed. And that would also, and the economic side comes from the influx of drugs and the influx of bad socialism that deteriorates the society. And that also stems from the Iraq War with the opioids that came from Iraq. So ever since the Iraq War, we have all of these drugs in the streets now, and so in quote unquote medications that are actually heroin. Okay, with that being flooded into society, it breaks down economics, it breaks down the willpower to work, which messes with us financially. That breakdown brings up the crime. That crime, at the same time with the development of robots, invites a quote unquote Robocop type scenario, which we have already been programmed with a lot of these things through movies. We can start with a movie like Blade Runner, is one that's a classic that prophesizes this type of scenario, but also other movies like Demolition Man, RoboCop, Judge Dredd. You have Terminator. You have also The Matrix, which there's a connection in between the Terminator and the Matrix. But yeah, that's the stump. That's the breast of it. The gist of it.
All right. Now we talked a little bit about this, about how uh, the elite are actually running this and trying to pull this off. And you suggested that they're already off world, right? Because they're not going to ruin a planet that they live on, right?
Correct. And if you look at it, like I said, economically. So economically, it could be driven forcefully, as it has, with the selling of a lot of companies, with CEOs leaving, and the selling of basketball teams, and the selling of major industries and business and corporations that have lasted for over 100, 200 years, have fed thousands, if not millions, of families over time, and they're being depleted on purpose. So, with them being depleted on purpose, it puts the people in a deprivation status. With the deprivation, we have another provision, and those provisions would be a larger factory situation that produces more, that can own land, have the individuals living on their land, and also give them provisions in which they need. So, when you understand the lower classes of existence, um, they don't really ask for too much when it comes to their survival, because they think life is already in complexity. So what they'll do is they'll just go to work, they'll look for their liquor, and then they'll look for somewhere to go dance and have party with their woman. They listen to a lot of the advice that comes from their women, and their women are tied to the state. And that's another battle that we're seeing right now, that is enforcing the economics to drive downward.
All right. So when you're talking about women in power,
And no, I'm talking about women overall and how they've done it. And the way they've done it is by just teaching little girls nothing but Walt Disney. And Walt Disney has been a filter system for old European witchcraft, you know. So
okay. So let's talk about that a little bit, because you mentioned that in your book, that all of the Disney movies, really, the stories come from ancient times, right?
yeah, a lot of those stories do come from ancient times. There is a system where a lot of these stories are unified or found in separate tribes and separate racial groups all across the planet that have a similar thread. A lot of these stories have been broken down into, the Walt Disney cartoon that we now witness, with new additives and new and other elements mixed in between for an enforcement. So, for example, I think it's Cinderella. Cinderella is actually a combination of like 360 different stories, that were folklore stories of old Europe. And through their compilations, they composed a story that has a lot of different psychological influences embedded inside of them.
So how much of the old Europe do we see in society today?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah. Everything that you see, from the names of corporations, the names of streets, how streets are designed, cobblestones, plumbing systems, all of that was not a thing of the native structure, of the native environments. These are things that were mastered in old Europe through a time period of, I can say, more than 700 years to 1,000 years, because it was a refinement of Greece and Rome.
Okay. All right. So how is it the elites are, I mean, to just go back for a while, they've been trying to set this up for a long time, or is this something new, something recent? Have they just now, I mean, obviously the elite have been trying to run the world, but I mean, are they just now trying to, they just now see that they can get off of it and are working with extraterrestrials to make the I guess the Earth pretty much a factory planet, or is that something new that they're just now getting into, or have they been working with extraterrestrials for hundreds of years?
I'd have to say, I would guesstimate hundreds of years. I can't confirm if there's been extraterrestrial involvement. I can definitely point out a lot of odd things in medieval paintings that you don't see in America's early drawings of the 1700s and 1800s. When it comes to the social influx to drive society this way, I've seen information written in the late 1700s about, in trying to design a social system where women are masculinized and men are effeminate. And hopefully that was going to, quote unquote, develop a heaven. When it comes to industrially and machine wise to develop robots specifically to take over the planet, I've never seen information about that written in yesteryear. I've only seen what you have seen or what anybody else may have seen with current research on the subject.
So are they trying to be immortal, or are they trying to merge themselves with robots, or are they actually just want the robots to control humanity?
Both could be happening. This is a very large test zone. It would take a very long time for that to be extremely mastered. And the reason why is because there's a lot of invisible zones that control human. So, it's just like we have yet to transfer a liver to another human body and have that be successful in running for, a long amount of years, due to the organ possessing the entirety of the other person. So there's been situations of like the transferring of organs where a person will pick up habits from the person that's already dead because of the spirituality, I guess, attached to that one organ. So there's a lot of invisible areas that control the human that I don't know if the robot is going to be able to fuse with the human. And if they were to make that happen successfully, I'm guessing it's going to take years, maybe 100 years for that to occur.
Yeah, that's crazy. You tend to think about, things like this come to mind, like Elon Musk and the Neuro Transplant, where, I mean, we're talking about putting chips in our brain that are able to connect with the internet or put things on our eyes, like in the Terminator movies, when the Terminator is looking around and you can see through his vision, like identifying people with facial recognition and putting their name, like kind of a computerized vision, right? That's kind of what they're trying to do, right? But with humans, not with robots.
Right. And the funniest thing about this is, like I just stated, there's invisible elements to the human. So in order to that to occur, they would have to make the human depreciate all value of love. That's self-love and love for the opposite gender. Okay. And that's a process that we're going through right now. And they're trying to make everybody individualized as possible. Hopefully, hoping that they don't get inside deep areas of psychology and sexual pathology and see what the results is for a lot of the games that they're playing with the love zone and with, male and female relationships.
All right, and I want to thank you, Vash, for clarifying my audio levels. We're all good now, so that's pretty awesome. When you talk about connecting the brain to the internet, one of the flags, I guess a red flag that comes to my mind would be the ability for somebody to be able to hack the human brain, to be able to hack you. What are the potential outcomes of that?
That's dangerous. We're dealing with the area of epigenetics, is what it's called. It's called epigenetics. Me and you both, we don't know how old our blood is, and that's where it gets funny. If you put a chip in a human's brain, we do not know how long or what that chip will be able to find out inside of one's blood. And we're talking about millions of years of history. So it's a dark zone. I wouldn't tamper with it. I don't suggest anybody else tamper with it. There's one thread that they're feeding on when it comes to this whole thing, and you can find this all the way down to tribal activity. It's something about the human where they're not comfortable with themselves. They got to prick their skin. They have to put horns on the helmet on their head. They have to cut, make abrasions in their skin for, put on paint and dance around and put feathers in your hair and give yourself 5-10 different names. It's something about the human where, it may be a guilt trip situation from the whole Adam and Eve event, but whatever it is, they're not comfortable with themselves. And that's what the government is feeding upon. So it doesn't, the elites, we're giving them fodder, for them to eat, basically. And that's exactly what they're doing. We don't take self-responsibility. We don't like it.
All right. So what do you think that they'd be looking for in the blood?
Who knows? When we look into real ancient documents, you could definitely refer to Manly P. Hall and a lot of his lectures that he gave. There are some astronomical things documented that humans were capable to do at one time. But during this time period, when we had these capabilities, the mineral content of our food was greater, the air was clearer, communication and human relationships were a lot stronger. So who knows what they're looking for? Maybe they're looking for the superhero element. They're looking for, I don't know. Like I stated, all humans are just uncomfortable with themselves.
Yeah. You make an interesting point about the food being better and the air being better, 100 so years ago. Do you think that they're slowly terraforming our planet for a different species?
That's interesting. That could definitely be the case. What type of species? I don't know. For us to have as much oil in the ocean and as much plastic, because plastic is also another form of oil. We have tires, which is also another form of oil, all throughout our oceans. It definitely seems like something for lubrication, oil lubrication, to be at an atmospheric level where robots could survive. We do have, 20, 30 years strong documented of the chemtrails in the air. Are they trying to black out the sun? I don't know. Who knows? We've seen a lot of trickery with the Biden being in office. There's a lot of Hollywood trickery going on with green rooms and where people are located at, and pictures that they're reproducing to make it seem like there's a conflict going over here, or a building got blown up over here, and it's actually a clip from an old movie. It's a lot of. Go ahead.
Yeah, we actually aren't allowed to say that on the channel. We had a video pulled when I mean, it was pretty clear that they were using old videos, and I called them out on it, and they pulled the video down and said I was spreading misinformation. Google actually pulled their reverse photo lookup thing off the internet so that you can't reverse search a photo anymore. Isn't that crazy?
I wouldn't doubt it.
It's crazy that the amount of stuff that's going on today is certainly scary. 1018 Pills says filter the blood. I love what you said about it seems like they're putting oil-based products all over the place. I mean, they're throwing a fit about oil. We need to get away from oil. But you're right, between plastic bottles, plastics, and tires and all this stuff, we've got oil all over the place. And you're right, after what, maybe 100, 200, 300, all that stuff's going to it's going to be like an oily lubricant everywhere. And that if the air has kind of an oily lubricant to it, what better atmosphere for robots could there be?
Exactly. And that just came to my head. My brain put all of those mathematics together as I was speaking to you, because that is the process. And the ocean is going to evaporate into the sky, and then it's going to converge our clouds and things of that nature, added in with the chemtrails, added in with exhaust smoke from cargo ships, planes, vehicles, trains. All of that is good. Nuclear power plants, all of that is going on right now as we speak. It doesn't sound like an environment conducive for human survival, but relative to history, humans have survived in a lot of different environments. So we don't know what's coming next, what could be coming, or do we have the force to stop it?
So how far along is the AI, you think, to be able to control all this? Do you think that it's possible that there's already an artificial intelligence that's out there, maybe in space or circling the planet somewhere? Maybe even the Black Knight satellite is a form of AI that will eventually take over all of the robots and drones and everything we've created here on Earth.
That's already happened. They have what you call satellite constellations now. There are so many satellites in the sky right now that astrologers are saying they can't directly read astrology because a lot of the satellite lights are in the way. There's thousands of satellites that scatter all across our planet, and they are all connected through an AI called Skynet. Skynet has actually been online since 1996, I think it was. And it is a large connector in between all the different satellites that are watching us. That's how you get your Google Earth. That's how you get your quick phone calls, your WhatsApps, and all of this other stuff is coming from the satellites that surround our planet. They also say there's 2 billion pounds of trash that float around our planet too. So,
oh, you're talking about in orbit?
Yeah, in orbit. We're talking about outside the atmosphere zone, right?
Now that's I mean, Skynet, isn't that what the AI was in Terminator?
Exactly.
They actually called it that in reality.
Right. And that's also the same Skynet that's used in the movie AI with Will Smith. That's what they're referring to.
Oh, that was Skynet as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's metaphysics. You got a lot of these movies, and a lot of the apocalyptic movies, a lot of the robot movies, futuristic movies are actually written by high-level colonels in the military. So when they're books first before they get made into movies.
Yeah, it's all about Project Mockingbird, how the CIA sets up just a line of thinking by creating movies and TV shows that manipulate our minds into thinking certain ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'll be able to break out of this?
That's a difficult question. When we think about the power of the human, because that's really what we're talking about, that's what breaking out of is going to be based upon. Is going to be based upon us. Our sustenance of power has been stripped from us by our breaking of relationships. Men don't have women that make them feel strong anymore, and women feel strong by the provisions of the state, which are actually designed to break man down. So if that system doesn't get reversed, then man has no strength or no backbone without the 1,000% support of his woman. And as we just saw with everything that happened with the cure or the COVID situation, women relied upon the state and they were let down. They argued their husbands about this situation, and now they've been made a fool. We can go everywhere without a mask or without the vaccination card. So,
Okay. All right. So what do you mean? I'm confused. What does women have to do with it?
Your stability, your strength as a man, what your fortitude is, what you represent, and what you're fighting for. If we're gonna fight against something, we're gonna have to have our unity line with us. And as of right now, we don't. So if we don't have our woman for sustenance, then we're not going to be able to fight up against anything or to break out of this situation.
Yeah, and they obviously been trying pretty hard to normalize split up families, and in the last 50 years they've completely killed the family.
Now you see it. Now you see it. The real root strength and power line of the human has been our 7,000, 10,000 years of history on this planet. And whether we go to Vikings, whether we go to the Zulu tribe, whether we go to the Mayans, whether we go to the Hopi Indians, man and woman were together in allegiance and in agreement. They have broken that cord. With that cord being broken, there is no fight.
So we're done.
As of right now, until we have blatantly been shown, well, the woman has been shown that the government is not her friend in reliance of enforcement of your social propaganda and agenda. We just seen this largely with the COVID situation. If they're not going to respond to the logics and the letdown of that, we're done. They think their makeup is more important at this moment.
All right. So what can a man do to help show women what's really going on? I mean, men don't even know what's going on, really. They're all caught up in their own little thing.
Exactly. Everybody has the cell phone. There's a million apps to go to. There's a million philosophies to listen to. There's a million agendas to pick up on. Me, I'm a baseline individual. So I like to deal with what is the hardcore fact, unmovable element. And this situation, as we have seen the progression over years, is the unmovable element. For me to jump up and down in front of any group of people, women, group of men, whatever, 9 times out of 10, you might be considered a fool. You may be considered a quack, and everybody's to each his own, I guess, until we see RoboCop coming down the street, and I guess people are just going to their homes and close the front door. They're not gonna round up with each other,
Yeah, and that's another issue that they're trying so hard to keep people apart, keep people out of church, keep people from gathering. And obviously we can't even talk about certain things, or they'll remove our platform, or something else, right? That's going on where they're trying to keep the truth from coming out, right?
Exactly. And that's it. Um, they the state controls every household by the women that are aligned to the state.
All right, now go-kart Bob here. He says no matter what women get, they want more, and that's not. I mean that could be said about everybody, right?
Yeah.
Greed has become greed and things. We all want to have the cool things, right? I'm thinking of that. There's a word for it, possessions and whatnot. The material things is more important to the human being today than anything else, and it could be the stupidest of stuff, right?
Well, yeah. It's funny you brought it up that way. I'd like to call this time period starting at around 1800, the Victorian age, all the way to now. I call this the beauty mania. This is the beauty / perfection mania that we're in. And when you go through history by detail, especially medieval times, you'll see that there was a lot of different manias that went on that were based upon one element that sort of embedded itself inside the cultural structure of a society. And right now, this beauty perfection mania, which is also the root element that developed our robots as the perfect worker, right? So the robot doesn't have to breathe, it doesn't have to eat, it's not going to sue you, it's not going to complain about a broken leg. You could just take it into the factory and get it reestablished, get it back to work. It runs off of batteries or electricity. It defeats the human employee automatically. And it brings us to a stage of quote unquote perfection, where we see a lot of our women right now. They're idolizing the perfect shape, and they're going to go get very dangerous surgeries on the other side of the planet to be in the space of perfection and beauty. For what reason? Attention. But attention is the survival tactic of the infant, is what I like to call it. It's the survival tactic of the baby. And if you are still in that mental space as an adult, 9 times out of 10, you're still in infancy mind state. Just because your age may be 30 or 40 does not mean that your mind is aged at the same rate as your flesh. So we got a lot of perfection to hide things, a lot of perfection to replace things that's going on right now. And we're not paying attention to the consequences or the possibilities in the future that may be extremely negative for our survival as humans.
All right. So you think that the world, I guess, do you think the world would be better off if feminism never happened?
Well, that's feminism has been a social propagandized thing that started in the early 1900s. Okay. And it was really, there's a lot of different movements that were tested and capitalized in the 1900s to about 1900 to 1920 or 30. And they were rebirthed now. So the happy movement, the feminist movement, the overexpending movement, all of these type of activities were already tested early in the 1900s. So this is a enforced propaganda thing. Feminism, what is it? Like, it never was in any other civilization before America. There really is nothing to stand on when you mention feminism, and the reason being is because they have no industrial reliance. Women haven't provided anything. There's not one utility that's started by, controlled, and maintained by women across this planet for one country. So once we have a provision, then we can have a demand.
Yeah.
Just like men with money. I walk inside the store, I could demand what I want when I have the money, which shows the weight. If I have no value position to show, then your demands go unheard.
Yeah, well, nobody's going to listen to you, listen to your demands if you don't have any money, right?
Right, and there's no provision. If we were to erase money, women together collectively cannot build a submarine. They will not build a 747 plane, cargo plane. The oil factories that are sitting out in the middle of the ocean that men have to go work at for 6 months straight, or the ones in Alaska, for that matter. Women don't know anything about these things, and we allow them to give us a lot of nagging online and a lot of defamation towards malehood or masculinity. For what reason? They think it's permissive, and the only reason they think it's permissive is because they feel inferior to the position of production on this planet.
All right. Sorry, man. I'm gonna get so much crap for this interview, man. I can hear it now. Like there's no way I want my wife listening to this show. No, I don't want to hear it.
I mean, I love women. I mean, I have no problem with women, but my brain is built on chess, and that's another thing. We have Call of Duty, we have Mario Brothers out here, but we don't have chess. And when you play chess, and when you have chess overtly programmed in your thinking structure, you know your place and you know what you can do from your position. A rook cannot play the position of a bishop, and the bishop cannot do what the pawn does. We all have specific roles to play. So when a person gets out of their position and they're trying to play a role of something else that's not for them, you unstabilize the whole board. There is no game to play. Nobody wins, nobody loses. We're at a position of stagnation.
All right, so make a sandwich, right? I'm reading AJK's comment there. I throw that out there. All right, so obviously we've got some big problems, and I mean I I understand what you're saying. Like women aren't going to be out there on the battlefield in the old medieval days. Right. Fighting with axes and swords and everything else, to defend their castle, right? I mean,
right.
At what point does the demanning of the man play into the fall of the country? I mean, of the earth, for that matter.
Well, I forgot what philosopher said it, but when a country loses the morals that it was grounded upon, is the start of its collapse. And that is basically what we're looking at. And we're also looking at another system. Usually countries or civilizations only thrive for about 200 to 250 years, then comes a collapse. When we look at the details of Rome, we see that at the end of their civilization, women were consuming wine at a very large rate, which was not the case at the beginning of Rome. You also see the purchasing of monkeys and the purchasing of exotic pets. And there becomes some form of blindness that humans want to impose on what's going on with their responsibility rate, what they can actually do. So with all of these things in place, it's sort of like it was supposed to happen. But here's the scary part. Westernism has taken over the entire planet, and we are the source of that. So if our civilization collapsed, it's gonna
not the whole planet.
Oh, not the whole planet, but the industrialized areas, or quote unquote civilized, right? Not the third world countries, or there's still tribal conditions on the planet right now as we speak. Yeah. So, right. So those areas will collapse, and with the concrete, steel, and the iron that's been used, we're not in a position to allow anything to collapse right now, because to revitalize it or rehabilitate it is going to take, it's going to take a lot.
All right. So I guess we'll try to get off this subject a little bit here and to get on to something else because I guess that's as controversial as it gets, right? I mean, um, and I've read a lot, that suggests that when women are when women are put in power in certain countries, those countries don't last very long. I think even the Romans did it, right? Didn't the Roman Empire did it to a point? Like the Romans were always ruled by men. It was only the last 100 years that Rome was started getting women rulers, and then you saw the collapse of Rome. So I mean, there's some interesting thoughts to everything that you say, but talking about the robots, I mean, if the robots were gonna, I mean, obviously they're taking over everything. They're taking over the manufacturing jobs. They're even, screens and you go to McDonald's, you don't even need somebody at the front counter anymore, and they're even having, where your entire burger and everything will be made by a robot. That like it's getting to the point where at McDonald's, they're not even going to need to be manned. You maybe have one person there to make sure the machines are running right. So we're looking at a takeover here, but in order for this to happen, they're still going to need power from somewhere. They're still going to need, you know, uh, a few workers to maintain the robot fleet, I suppose. But the rest of the people, they're going to have to depopulate, aren't they?
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to depopulate by their own ignorance. That's basically the maintenance of the lower levels of society. As we say, it's only the 1%ers that are taking care of the whole planet. 80% of the planet is poverty stricken, and that's really because of their mental status. And when we really look at human history, this is the first time the layman, me and you and the others, have had high level sciences at our availability. When I graduated from high school, I didn't know anything about psychology, sociology, anthropology, astronomy, astrology. I didn't know anything about these things. I'm highly interested. I've been reading on these subjects for eons, but they weren't introduced to me when I was in high school. So when it comes to the standard intelligence, I guess the highest level of literature written on the planet publicly is New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and that's written at a 7th grade level. So go ahead.
I was just saying, okay, I was agreeing with you. You can continue if you weren't finished.
Oh no, I mean that's all I was saying is this is the first time intelligence has been at our availability, and the majority of the planet have a very deep, I'm safe to say, genetic adversity towards reading.
The Happy Plague Doctor says millionaires and billionaires can't even keep their wives happy. What chance do I have?
That's another show. That's volume 2 when I go over to witchcraft, if you want to know the details on that.
All right. Well, let's talk a little. You mentioned one subject in your book that I didn't want to talk about because I guess we're running out of time. We're going to hand it over to the listeners for questions. So we got about 15 minutes.
Okay.
I wanted to talk to you about medicinal cannibalism.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. You've done a lot of research in cannibalism as medicine in ancient Europe, and I was wondering what you could talk to us about that. What have you learned about that?
Well, it's not only in ancient Europe. You'll find it in Greece. You'll find it in ancient Egypt as well. Okay. It's part of the original thought structure of humans where you can't really divide magic and medicine. There's always been a mind frame of a metaphysical alliance of how spirituality moves pertaining to disease. And that is in all tribes, that's in all ancient civilizations, that's even in early America. Okay. So that type of activity didn't stop until around 1920s or 30s when the quacks really got shut down because they were advertising too much towards women when it came to morphine and heroin was being used, and also hemp was being used as hardcore medicines during those times. And during that time, there was no law or litigation written towards it, so anybody could claim themselves to have the great cure or to be a doctor. So when we talk about cannibalism in the sense of medicinal practices, it was always related to, if you had a problem with your hand, then you would eat a part of a human's hand. And then it was mummified when we talked about we talk about the medieval times. And the reason they called it the mummy is because a lot of mummies that were in ancient Egypt were actually consumed and used inside of medicines, their ashes, and also their ashes were put inside a lot of the paintings and the murals that you'll see throughout old Europe, and it made the paintings alive, if you understand what I'm saying there. And
Yeah.
that's also part of the reason why they use the cannibalism in medicine, is for the life force, the sustenance of human essence to repair human essence, that type of thing.
All right. So where was the science in, if you had an issue with your hand, you would eat a hand?
Or you would eat a part of a hand. The science is just relation, you know.
Did it work?
I don't know. I wasn't down there to tell you. The only medicine that is confirmed to work is when we came in to hands with insulin. Insulin killed down syphilis and killed down leprosy and a lot of other things that you won't see today. That's why you don't see mass disfigurements on the bums or on people because of diseases. Is because of the discovery of insulin in the 1800s. What happened before that, and if individuals were cured from these magical placebos, is what you can call them, I don't know. The placebo is definitely a thing that is psychologically reliant and has a long history of working.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely creepy stuff. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how they treated impotence back then, right?
Uh, well, impotence was a large situation, because that actually falls into the category of witchcraft. Impotence in a lot of the ancient documents, specifically medieval, would rely upon the female's activity, which would also classify them as witches. So basically, women can conduct behaviors, can say certain words and phrases to lower your self-esteem, and these things would encourage impotence. But also, if your environment wasn't that healthy, your diet wasn't that healthy, that would also be impotence. But they would blame that on the women as well. So
All right. You fascinate me, man. All right, I do want to talk seriously about some things. You've also have in your books how a lot of um, I guess black art had been covered up in European time. Like you had, statues of black women and black men who were completely painted white, and and all these, I guess, to where the Europeans were hiding the fact that there was nice art that was created by black people, that
Mhm,
that they covered up and
mhm.
made to think that white people created it. Why do you think that they would do that? They're obviously trying to keep the, I mean, why would they do that?
Well, it's simple. And I like to bring a lot of things to the simplicity of the animal world, or quote unquote caveman, cavewoman time period. And it goes like this: when you're the winner, you could do what you want. And that's just basically it. And they did exactly that. So when they ran the Moors out of Europe, out of Spain, the last group in the 1492, underneath the Treaty of the Peace of Friendship, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand ran the last of the Moors out of Spain. The Moors went into Spain in 711, They were invited by Visigoths. There was a couple of wars with some of the tribes, the Vandals and things of that nature, and Ostrogoths. But in essence, they assisted with the reviving of the whole European uh, continent. And they did that from Scotland and Russia all the way down to Italy. So you'll find Moorish heads, or what you want to call blackamoors, and you'll still find some of their remnants in antiques right now. And if you go into certain areas into Germany, Italy, you'll still see these heads over certain coffee shops or things of that nature. If you go deep inside the family crest of a lot of royals, no matter the country, Normandy, Norway, Poland, you will find black Moorish heads on their family crest at around about 1600 and back. Well, yeah, 1500, 1400. They started getting really attacked around the 1500, 1600 zone, but there was a lot of atrocity. There was a lot of events that encouraged these attacks. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of kidnapping. There was a lot of confusion going on in between not only the racial lines, but how racial lines are fused with religious lines. So you will find Catholic Moors. There are also Islamic Moors. Did they go to war with each other? Yes, they did. So, but they were both black, you see. So you have things like that where our modern understanding would definitely look at these time periods as confusing. But if I win and I want to repaint whatever, however I want to, I'll do exactly that. If your people complain about it 5, 6 generations from now, do something about it. If you can't do anything about it, then whatever. There's a lot of magic that's embedded when we're talking about paintings or statues or things of that nature. So to remove these things, you're also adjusting political statuses. You're adjusting a lot of history that's unwritten and unwritten. You're destabilizing the country, and that's part of what we've witnessed over the years here in America with certain statues and locations.
So, do you think it's good that people in America are tearing down statues?
Um.
Asked you a heated question, didn't I?
Yeah, that's a heated one. That's a heated one, and it needs to be addressed. I understand. Go ahead.
And I'll go ahead and say first and see if you can either agree or disagree with me. But a nation that forgets its history isn't a nation, right? You're in fact trying to change a nation, and I mean, obviously, we've had problems with the country in the past, but you could see how they're just trying to divide the people, right?
Well, I understand a lot of things, and one thing that I understand is, conquering does occur. There's been wars in between man for eons, and your reasoning for conquering is definitely going to be shown uh, with the fruit of the labor after years. And look at what we have here in America. You know, a lot of people want to complain about it, but in reality, you can't go anywhere else on this planet that has a better system. Now, they've duplicated and replicated the system of America. They have not birthed this out of their origins. So they don't really understand a lot of the alchemical principles that was put together for the sustenance of this nation. And that also deals with statues. That also deals with what has happened in our country. Now, historically, where we mess up is, I personally feel that the American populace could have been educated better by the Europeans or white Americans that have been our forerunners, and all other races have been following. Um, whether that be technology, whether that be literature, whether that be socialism, popularity, styles, clothing. We have been following the Western way. We've been following the European thought, and we have not been given enough percentage of that thought for us to have our own sustenance and survival. Of course, um, you don't want to let your workers go. I guess that may be a part of the situation, but that is the historical lineup. What has happened here is Europeans have had far more trial and error with the element of survival than any other people on the planet, and with them having the intelligence in that area, which put them into the areas of industrialism and science and chemistry, which has advanced their position, they've left us all behind, and now the planet is unbalanced. Okay. And the majority of existence are jealous. They're trying to catch up. They don't know how to catch up. Literature has not been enforced on them by their own parents by majority rule. So we don't comprehend the system that Westerns are ruling by. Um, America is the sign of that. America and Europe in combination are definitely the sign of that, and they have engulfed the planet. So, you know,
Do you think it's good for the people of the world that the media is pushing racism as much as it is? Do you think it helps to eliminate that as a problem, or do you think it makes it worse?
um,
Because I'll be honest with you, man. I'm an Uber driver. All right,
mhm.
I drive all around, and I don't see much racism out there, man. I mean, it doesn't matter what color the person is that gets in my car. We're polite and respectful to each other. You know what I mean?
um,
I've never really had a problem or a fear. I think a lot of times maybe maybe the media is making more out of it than it really is. What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious.
Yeah, that is true, but I have seen it in a lot of people, and I can only see it as a form of jealousy. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of lack of comprehension, not knowing. For instance, if we go a couple of years ago and we look at the riots, okay, um, the people who were down there destroying businesses were only destroying businesses because they don't themselves have a business. They don't have a business themselves. They don't know the ins and outs of the maintenance of a business. So therefore they don't have respect for it. And they automatically feel excluded. Okay. Now, if we were to look at how TV can reflect on people's minds, some people feel excluded from the social picture of America because they don't have an individual to identify with inside media. And I've heard things like that from even Asian males. Right now, that's the situation with black females. They feel as if they're not accepted by the world if they're not accepted in TV.
Yeah, but do they actually feel that, or is that just what the television is programmed into their mind?
And that
It wasn't for television.
the television programmed it in their mind, therefore they do feel it and they will act upon it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah. I'm not saying that they don't feel it, but I'm saying the cause is actually that they've been programmed to feel that way, not that it is something that actually happens in the world. But I mean, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the world. I'm sure that there are racist people out there. I'm sure. I'm sure that people experience real racism. I'm sure that happens. I mean but I don't think it's as big a problem as it was.
Well, I mean,
Say.
racism has always been there, but I want to show you a wider perspective that I discovered over time dealing with America and death, because basically the only reason people complain about the slave trade or what happened in America was because of the amount of murder, so on and so forth. So one time I got a book about the Indian tribes that were the headhunter Indian tribes and the scalping tribes. And guess where they were located? They were located in Florida. That's where what's his name got all of the stories about the city of gold and all of that. I forgot. I think it's Abernathy. Um, got the stories of the city of gold was from scalping tribes who were lying to him, who sent him up the river to get scalped by cannibalistic tribes. Okay, and these tribes stem from Florida all the way to New Orleans, all the way up to Arkansas to about Tennessee. So when you look at that, that's one layer. This was about 100 to 200 years before the African slave trade started in the same region. And then when you also pay attention to that region, that's where the majority of your poisonous animals are located. Your alligators, big wasps, you got a lot of hogs running around. There's a lot of violent animals and creatures in this same region. So then when you look at the map again and you say, where are the majority of people dying from diabetes or obesity or breast cancer, things of that nature? Guess what? They're all southern states. Okay. So what we're really looking at is that whole region is encompassed with death energy. Okay. So that was before the African American slave trade happened. What happened is that when people moved there by mass, they picked up on the energy that was already in that location and responded to it. Okay. So it's just like if I take you right now who lives in Alabama and I throw you to New York, in 5 to 7 years, your accent will be fused with Italian accent because you're, you
Well,
see,
I grew up in New Jersey, so
okay, but you know what I'm saying, right? If you take somebody from one location and put them into another location, they're going to become the new location where they're at to a
yeah,
certain.
I definitely say y'all a lot more now than I did. That's true.
Right.
So do you think? All right. Let's take a minute here. Hit the thumbs up button. It's definitely a different conversation today, and quite frankly, one that I think everybody should have all over the world. Like we need to really talk about these things with each other. So if anybody has any questions, now's the time. All of the links to Keenan's stuff is down in the description box below. He has a really interesting YouTube channel I suggest you take out. Man, I was watching this one video where you were pretty much telling a story about the old European brothels and how the women were treated, and basically how their life was, like once they got to a certain age, like how they moved into other things. And I found that fascinating. But the Happy Plague Doctor says the problem is that people aren't assimilating. Do you think that's the problem?
Assimilating with what? Today's society, or assimilating with
to wherever they go? Like if you go somewhere, should you assimilate into that society? I disagree with that to a point where, if I move to, I mean, I'm American. I grew up in New Jersey. I like burgers and things. And if I move to Japan, I'm just not going to all of a sudden like Japan food and talk Japanese all the time and whatnot. I mean, I'm still going to be me. Maybe the problem, maybe that's not it at all, right? What do you think?
That's a very good question, because that's what I just got caught into. I've been living in Las Vegas for about 8 years. So out here, it's a large liquor culture. It's a large gambling culture. And those are very serious vices that I will not toy with. So, I haven't assimilated. And I came here and I wrote books in the world's #1 party city. So I haven't I haven't really assimilated. I don't know if that's affected people in any kind of way, but I do know that's what my position is. It's safe to say, be yourself, be educated, and be respectful.
Yeah.
What is so hard about that, man? Common courtesy. Humans were here thousands of years before you were born. Why don't you go look at what was going on? Okay. You'll have a little bit more respect towards where we're at right now and how to treat the common man. Okay. Yeah, that's basically where, standard intelligence doesn't go past 1980. So, right. If we're going to be, assimilating to anything, let's assimilate to proper intellect. History, science, that's it. It's what we need. Theology, history and science gives us a hardcore bottom line. You know, that's all I can say about that, bro. I can't.
You think
You
the
know,
area? Do you think the area where people are are mostly living for generation after generation after generation designate their race simply by the area that they're in, or do you think that that we've created? I mean, obviously there's I mean there's a ton of different races, but there's really like a I mean if you look at the Hopi Indian prophecy, there's four colors, right? And they say that they had the Tower of Babel, and at the Tower of Babel, the yellow or the red skin went west, the white skin went north, the black skin went south, and the yellow skin went east, be it Asian, right?
mhm.
Do, do you think that is what created races in the world? Do you think we all came from one ancestor and we just all of a sudden pissed off God, so he decided to make us all different races, and he blinked his eye and we were different races? Or do you think that it was the areas that we were living in that made us the races that we are?
um, Definitely, your geographical location has a lot to do with you as a race and your extent of intelligence and also your exploration. So,
Yeah,
for instance,
it's
go
just a
ahead.
natural, it's just natural for a human being to evolve in that way. I mean, a human being in a rainforest is going to evolve over hundreds of years, different than somebody out baking in the sun every day, right?
Right, in the desert, right, and how they see things and the plants that they use and their intelligence and communication with animals. All of those things are going to be considered when we look at the value or the comparison and contrast of what they are as a human race. Now, the reason why I say value is because that deals with your, once again, exploration, your extension of intelligence, what you can build, what you have secured, what you have provided, and your invention. And a lot of races don't have that because, for instance, when it comes to islanders are very limited. They don't have too many animals around them. They have maybe a chicken, a dog, and some cows. Maybe a cow, depending on how big the island is. But by majority rule, they only have pigs. So they don't have a very extensive system in mythology. Say, for instance, like Greece has a large system in mythology. But they're also, if you look at Greece, that location is sort of small as well. Their expansion of thought was probably based off of sexual exploration, which does expand the mind, which Islander groups didn't have that because they had more of a matriarchal system. So, there's different ways to look at it. Geographically, it's going to affect you pertaining to your animals, your plants, and what's around you. Your exploration is also going to be dependent on your geographics. If you're on an island, you can't do that. You can't do that much. If you're in the middle of Zambia, you can go pretty far if you want to, unless you create psychological limitations like a goddess in the river that's going to come eat you alive or something of that nature. Europe, it would be the same thing. Their exploration was inhibited by weather conditions. But besides weather conditions, they did fight through, and we see some of that today in the movies that's shown to us. So, you know, your intelligence rate is definitely going to be based upon the trial and error that came through your environment. You know,
Yeah, and
and,
not only that, but there's also learned memory, like DNA memory. You know,
mhm.
that's where instincts come from. So yeah, I think bottom line is, everybody, it would sure be nice if we just treated each other with respect always, right? That's the bottom line. All right, guys. So if anybody has any questions, I guess we got about 20 minutes left. If anybody has any questions, we kind of, I guess, got off topic of the main the main topic, but I guess that's what happens sometimes. You get thrown in a conversation. A factory planet for the elite is currently being created, and it seems like depopulation and AI robotic takeover is in the works. And if you have any questions about that or anything else, feel free to ask in the description or in the chat box, I suppose. Bash has a question here. He says, how has the guest been able to remain neutral when talking about women men issues? The way he talks about women is similar to how feminists talk about men.
Well, neutrality. I'm not really neutral. I am a man. I stand in man's position. As a matter of fact, the current book I'm writing right now is the Encyclopedia on the Alchemy of Women. It's an encyclopedia. It's a 2-volume series that hopefully will be out before summer. If I was to state that, like, I'm going to refer to what the brothers said here earlier about Rome collapsing when female rulers were at the end. Now, why does that occur? If I was to talk about the details of menopause, ovulation, dementia, and hysteria, would that be feminist or would I be a doctor? Would that be, you see? Now, when we talk about the psychological deterioration that occurs with women at a certain age, which is around the age of 30 to 35, and it's going to be extreme at the age of 40, and are certain things that you could do where this doesn't occur, but it's going to have to be upon her own willpower. If I was to talk about those things, are you going to call me, a chauvinist pig? Or are we going to look at the details of what biology and physiology says that's been documented in many civilizations? Every single civilization on this planet has documented this activity with women. The deterioration of the mind and the double thinking and, having cats around and flying on the broom. This stuff has been going on for eons. It was erased from the American literature structure at around the late 1800s to early 1900s. They took all of this stuff out of the social mechanism. So now we have we have multitudes of generations of men that don't know what a woman is. When everything in existence, from religions to government structures, have been based on the response and the maintenance towards females and their activity.
All right. I mean, you're right. You're never going to, it depends on who you're talking to, whether or not you get a fair shake on what you have to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Sapphire Elf says, when he talks about people taking on the energy of the land they are on, I wonder what he thinks of the Holy Land and Dome of the Rock.
What do you mean? The Dome of the Rock, the Holy Land? Are you referring to Bethlehem?
Yeah.
Jerusalem?
Yeah. And the energy that's there and the people taking on that energy. You
Well,
think that?
Whatever energy they feel and while they're there is what they're designed to feel while they're there. Will we have another Jesus that bursts out of that location? I highly doubt it. But, people do go there to feel the essence of purity. And that has been documented for hundreds and hundreds of years, that activity to go to travel to Bethlehem or Jerusalem, especially during Christmas, is well documented.
God created men, or do you think that that we were, I guess, engineered by an alien race?
This is an area where I like to say I don't know. I do like to say I don't know when I don't know, to leave a clear space for introduction of new information. Now, if we were engineered by an alien race, what for? What would be the reason? When you look at the ancient documents, they say it was for slavery, to dig gold. That could be the case. I don't know. We're here. That's all I can really say. I don't know who made who. I don't know if we all split from a Tower of Babel. I do not know. What I do know is that the Chinese are in China, the Africans are in Africa. That's what I go off of. I go off of what we can speculate and guesstimate from.
Okay. Bash says, why would a plastic oil environment be good for a computer-based system? Robots will be made of complex microchips at its heart and not cogs, nuts, and bolts.
Yeah. Well, regardless, you could rarely show me a machine that does not operate with oil. You know,
Hydraulics or
yeah, simple machines, simple engines need some form of lubricant. You know,
yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I don't see how that would be bad for a robotic environment if it rained oil. You know, if the rain was oily, yeah, that could only be good for them. I mean, right? At least I think so. It's kind of like WD-40 coming out of the sky. It's got to be.
right?
It can't be bad for a robot, right? You know, and the chips would be protected inside the inside.
Yeah, because chips use silica, which is, I think, a form of rubber, which comes from Africa, a tree. And I'm glad we're talking about this right now because let me state this. That's why there's no new building of cars. You haven't seen the PS5 being advertised a lot. And the reason it being is because there's a worldwide chip shortage. So that's why a lot of Chinese moved into Africa, was to look for certain minerals that are needed for the development of chips. And we're running into a large chip crisis right now, which also may be a collapse when it comes to our economics, because we're so reliant on chips right now.
All right. Chris V says, "Do you think most conflicts are due to race or cultural or religious issues?"
Religious issues are the ones that stem the furthest back. It was religion before race and culture was fused into that as another leg of blaming for why humans want to inflict violence upon other humans. There's also deep threads on why that activity occurs, but it's most definitely religious issues, because humans like a scapegoat excuse, and they like to point at something else besides it was them committing the act, or they like to have another reasoning on why they're committing the act.
Yeah. It's fascinating because I talked about it with my wife the other day. I was like, like or somebody was saying, I was reading somewhere that every war in the last 50 years could have been stopped if the media had just done its homework and research and actually told the truth. And we kind of started thinking a little bit about how media and whatnot pretty much has caused all these wars. But then I started thinking, Indian tribes fought Indian tribes over a river, back in the day. So I mean, I guess it's not all TV, right?
Well, I mean, come on. You got African tribes fought African tribes. You got Vikings fought Rome. It's everywhere. Violence has been, they say the first set of bones that they found had a spear in its rib, and that's just what we do. Sex and violence has been the major, what's the word they're using nowadays? It has been the major theme that's been riding with our existence for a very long time. And unfortunately, that's just the truth.
All right. Happy Plague Doctor wants to know, what do you think of Tartaria?
Tartaria, this is the location that used to be Russia that they claim was completely wiped out.
I guess so.
I think that's what he's talking about. It was supposedly an extreme advanced civilization that was the majority of Russia, the majority of Europe, and supposedly it got wiped out. And I just saw a video yesterday on TikTok of some levitation device that was created back. It looked like the video footage looked like it was 1940s or 50s. That was created in this so-called the descendants of the Tartaria. I don't know. I haven't done real deep research into Tartaria. If it occurred, there's many things on this planet that has been in existence that is extremely wiped out, and we don't know anything about it. We don't have direct literature or evidence on what really occurred and what the people were doing there, why they were doing it. We don't know. So a lot of things have been erased in order to bring about a global situation. And that global situation will allow us to have some standing if we come amongst other planets that have an entirety global situation.
Yeah, I think we're in the midst of a conflict right now that's been going on for hundreds of years, honestly. All right.
Yeah.
Cassandra wants to know, what do you think of the Georgia Guidestones?
The Georgia Guidestones, the population guesstimation that they have on there for the future to bring the planet down to, I think, to 500 million or something like that, instead of it being at its current population of 7 billion, 8 billion. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know who did it. There are this is what I could say. Okay. Extraterrestrial intelligence has been on this planet and will always come back and forth to this planet. And they will come to you in what you see as humans. There is no four-armed individual that's going to show up with halos and wings. Okay? Your dimension permits 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. And that's what individuals will appear as. Their intelligence to give you is for the advancement of civilization, for the advancement of the whole human race. Your history definitely shows that the major populace doesn't like these individuals. Whether it be the elite or the major populace, these individuals are killed by humans, whether that be elite or, the bottom layers. Okay. And that's the bottom line to it. So there becomes a disgust that has occurred over time with alien intellect and its giving to humans. Why? Because humans don't apply. Humans like to stay in the standpoint of, animal intelligence. And what is animal intelligence? Animals only eat and sit on their ass and watch. So that's what the majority of humans do today. We eat and we watch. We watch our phones, we watch other things, we watch other people, we walk around and watch. That's all the frog does after it consumes fly, is hop and ribbit. Okay, so until we get into the areas of human intellect where we all need to be, which requires the magic system of respect, you're going to have these weird threats, these weird things thrown at you in order to strike or say, give you the devil's fork on the hiney to get you ahead. And stop taking things for granted when it comes to existence and those around you.
Yeah, that's the truth. All right, Happy Plague Doctor wants to know, in your European research, have you learned much about the mud floods?
I didn't. Well, yeah, there's about 1 or 2 cases of mud floods inside the weather section, which is the first chapter in volume 1. There's also a lot of floods mentioned. They were called flash floods that would happen at like 2, 3 a.m. and kill over about maybe 10 to 20,000 people at a time. This is why our imagery of Sicily is individuals traveling in boats, is because of the floods that consistently occurred in old Europe that would take out a lot of people, especially on the Thames River at a time. And mud floods did consist of that as well. There was a lot of very odd weather situations that occurred within the time period of 700 to 1700 old Europe.
All right, Earl Pipe wants to know, does the mental deterioration of women coincide with their sexual peak?
Woo! Okay. Mental deterioration coincide with the sexual peak. This is an interesting one because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Women are opened into another world. They have access to another world. Let's just put it like that. This access to another world pumps them with a lot of fluid. This fluid can be found in Hindu studies to be called Amrita, Amrita. It's supposedly the fluid of immortality. And this is their orgasmic fluid, which is also life fluid. So when you understand life is predicated by sound. Movement predicates life. Movement usually makes sound. So when a woman has a lot of fluid, there's a lot of this life fluid inside of her body, is going to overload her mind with voices and thoughts. And this is where confusion comes from. This is where the cat lady starts to evolve, is because she's running around with all of these thoughts in her head that can only be relinquished through sexual activity. And she shuts down the sexual activity because of the desire to create a slave. So, which means the uterus has a desire for slavery, whether you're going in it or whether you're coming out of it as a child or as a grown man. There's an expectation of giving gifts and slavery. So, with that, she may also be caught with the burden of a child. And if she gets caught with the burden of a child, there's a possibility she may be left. And this is where the confusion comes in on to have sex or to not have sex. And yes, the mental deterioration does coincide with the sexual peak, because if she does not get rid of this fluid that's consistently fulfilling her body, and I do mean squirting fluid is not the same as urine. Let's keep this clear. Squirting fluid coming out of a woman can fill up buckets. It can fill up so much fluid can come out of her, it'll almost appear as if the fluid wasn't inside of her body. And that's why I started this statement out with the reference to women being connected to another world. So
I had women like that. That's crazy. I agree with you. Buckets.
So if this fluid stays in her mind, it's going to keep her confused. Period. The cat lady will evolve, so on and so forth. So yes,
right. All right, guys. This is definitely an episode for the ages here. Our response, Vash Wolfwood had his response. He says, "Sure, but more cultures and civilizations have collapsed under control of men. More shooters in the United States have been men. Mental health impacts men on a higher level than women. Would you agree?"
You said, what was the last part? What impacts men higher than women?
Mental health does.
Yes, and that's because they don't have their woman. Okay, now let's talk. It goes back to it again. A healthy, robust male is erect every morning. So that is automatically the answer to the mental deterioration of the sexual peak. But women feel as if they've fallen into some form of slavery by responding to social consistency. Women feel as if social defiance defines their revolutionary status. The way socialism has been designed, it has been designed for continuation and the protection and the security of us all. But they just look at it as some shit men brought up, some shit men created. Okay. So when it comes to men and their violence rate right now, I guarantee you, if we put two girls in little Timmy's bed and he's 20 years old, he's not going to go to the college shooting it up. I put money on that. So,
all right. Vash says, based on these factors, why couldn't you make the same argument about men causing so many global and local issues within our society?
Men have always went to war. Men will always go to war. That is a form of communication that we have always had since the beginning.
As long as men control men, they'll send men to war.
Yeah. War is nothing but old men discussing and young men dying. So, it's been a system that has been here forever. And let me say this before we go. People need to start looking at existence as softwares. Okay. So basically, you want to go help the poor. Okay. Well, guess what? The poor were here in the medieval times. They were here in Greece. They were here in Rome. They were here in Egypt. Okay. So guess what that is? It's a software. Okay. It'll always be here. It's going to be here 1,000 years from now. There's going to be poor people. Okay. So what you're doing in the standpoint of you thinking you're helping, you're only thinking you're helping because of your education status. You're not looking at the totality of the big picture here. You see? So and you also, with me stating that, look at humans as chemical computers, because that's really all they are, based with memory as well. But they're chemical computers, and when you get to look at it like this, you'll start to see the cycles that have been rolling over from, time, civilization after civilization.
All right. Mr. Blue Sky with a $5 super chat. Thanks so much. He says, a brave show, which we need more of, but I'm glad I'm here for the live stream, as this will probably get deleted by YT algorithm by morning. Hi, Mary Kay and Arlene. You know what? I don't know. I think we pushed the I might get demonetized, but I mean the show might, but I think the video is fine. I don't think we've really crossed the line. I mean at least not with them. I guess we'll see. So it looks like, let's see, I'm trying to see if there's any more questions.
Hit me with them.
Yeah, I'm looking, I'm scrolling.
This show won't be taken down, I assure you. YouTube knows well who I am.
Your channel's been up there for a while. Our elf says, does the guest think some ancient mysteries and similarities cross cultures could be explained by adding boats instead of aliens?
Yeah, that is interesting. There are a lot of similarities from the ancient civilizations, Mayan, Egypt, Inca, the way the pyramids are structured, also Angkor Wat and Cambodia region. There's a lot of similarities. Who designed these similarities? Why are they there? We don't know. Somebody does know. A lot of these questions, especially a question like that, needs to be asked to an individual who is not human. That's the point that a lot of us are at right now, is we could really only get we could feel comfortable with the answers that we receive from something that is not human. Are we ready to deal with that imagery in our eyesight is the question.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Sapphire Elf says, this sounds like a horny old man's way of justifying misogyny with mysticism.
What do you mean? What sounds like? What do you mean?
I guess just what you're saying.
Who said anything about it? Because I was referring to the squirt fluid. No, that's not horny. You just have to understand biology, physiology. I study a lot of stuff. So, especially when it comes to the medieval times and witchcraft and that whole element, a lot of people haven't reviewed this stuff. A lot of people have not reviewed, the Tantra systems of ancient Hindu, or why China worshipped the woman during the 9th century. Like I said, I'm writing an encyclopedia on this subject right now. So I have to go over a lot of things. That's organs, I have to study woman's sense of smell. If I was to tell you that the majority of females' lipstick, 90% of it has lead acetate in it, does that sound like horny old man now? No. That's telling you the reality of the position of insanity we may be dealing with our females because of their chemical influx from the makeup that they use. You see? So let's get down to some realities here and be mature about the subjects that we're looking at. There's nothing dealing with any form of horniness,
All right. Let's see.
Now, if you want the horniness in that word to be explained, I could definitely show you.
Not on this channel. I might have to go for that.
Oh no, that's actually a safe subject. That's safe, but it goes to the cornucopia, why all animals have horns, the definitions of horns on animals. It's a long subject, but
All right, man. Well, it looks like we've gotten to the end of the show, and we've reached the end of the questions. So I guess everybody's good. Keenan, man, I hope you had a good time chatting with us. We're gonna get you back on another time. I think you shipped me some books, so I'm going to get into those and we're going to check it out. Your books are The Black Man's Bible, The Ethereal Law, and let's see here. I had the other ones here. Kicked Out of Heaven, Volume 1, 2, and 3. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me online, youtube.com/TheeGod720. You can also check me out at KeenanBooker.com. That's KeenanBooker.com. I do music as well, and you can find that at The God 720 on any one of your streaming services. And you could go to StargatePublishing.com. Stargate Publishing is also where I'm selling my books at. And I'm also available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and any other location you find books at online.
All right, awesome. And I dropped the link in the chat for everybody to your YouTube channel. I asked you to go over there and give a subscribe and check out some of his videos. There's some interesting stuff over there. All of the links are in the description box below. Keenan, hang on a minute. Let me close this out, and I'll chat with you a bit off the air. A very interesting show tonight. Really appreciate you coming on.
Okay.
I want to let everybody know you can always find us online. Just go to www.conflictradio.net. You can find us on Spreaker, Apple iTunes, I guess Spotify, and all of your normal podcast catchers. You can also find us on Rumble, True Social, and Twitter. Definitely check us out. We're also on Facebook. Just look for Conflict Radio. I think True Social, you have to look for at Conflict Radio. We are over there now, and getting a lot of new subscribers and new listeners from True Social. Really great platform over there. You should go check it out. That's going to do it for us, guys. We're going to be back on Thursday. Until then, everybody, batten down the hatches and be safe.
Aircraft that were clearly talks about
Greetings and welcome to Conflict Radio. All right, hang on, Keenan.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble here because I forgot to ask the question, and I guess that everybody that's still around, you get to hear it. Man, I did this last week too, but you know what? I just seen the question pop up in the chat, and I thought, let me end the. We asked the same question from everybody on every show, and this twice now. I've done it right at the end. Do you know who Corn Pop is?
Corn Pop?
Yeah.
No, I see them putting it up here in the room. What is Corn Pop?
Corn Pop is a bad dude. You're going to have to Google it, man.
I'm about to right now.
All right, batten down the hatches, everybody. Be safe.